Welcome to the Matador Pencast, a monthly book show from the UK's #1 self-publishing company. Here's your host, writer and broadcaster, Tony Horne.
Hello again and welcome to the second Matador Pencast. My name is Tony Horne, and coming up on today's show, we have a special frequently asked questions section on ebooks. We've another Matador masterclass from the team at Matador, and we've a couple of author interviews for you. So let's crack on and meet our first one.
Now on the Pencast, it's time for Meet the Author.
And now on the Pencast, it's time to meet another author. I enjoy this bit. Let's welcome to the show Linda MacDonald, author of The Alone Alternative and others. Welcome, Linda.
Hello, Tony.
What else have you written, apart from The Alone Alternative?
I've written Meeting Lydia and A Meeting of a Different Kind. They form a trilogy, but each one stands alone.
I think that's important. I once spoke to the SAS writer, Chris Ryan, who's had a lot of success, and I said to him, do you carry books from one to the next? And he says, themes run through them, but it's unfair on the reader, because you think about it, there's often at least a year turnaround between books.
Yes.
So your most recent is The Alone Alternative. Give us a little summary of what we'll find in that.
Well, it's about stalking and the difficulties of starting a new relationship in midlife. Those are probably the main themes. To elaborate a little bit, Edward and Marianne have each lost a partner in midlife, and they used to be friends with each other, but they have lost touch, fallen out actually, and neither knows of the other's loss. But they are reunited via Twitter and eventually reconciled. But there are obstacles in the way of their developing relationship. They live 200 miles apart. They've got grown-up children, not all of whom approve.
This sounds like my life.
Well, I think it sounds like probably a lot of people's lives, and that's one of the reasons I chose this as a main theme.
We should say it sounds like our lives, apart from the stalking bit.
Well, I was just going to come to the stalking bit just briefly, is to say that Edward's got a neighbour, Jessica, who's been paying him quite a lot of attention, and at first he just doesn't realise, he doesn't catch on that there's any problem. He's a bit naive. But her behaviour becomes gradually more and more erratic, with alarming consequences.
Erratic, not erotic.
No,
right.
Erratic.
Now, this is quite interesting to me. I mean, I spend a lot of time on social media because, you know, if you write, and I do radio too, you do have a public job. It might be one of the loneliest and most private things in the process, but essentially you want to find an audience. And of course, there are all the social ups and downs of being on social media. But what we've got here is, you know, far from the only example, but a good example of people addressing what they would call first world problems, if you like, you know, the modern day issues that when we probably started studying and writing, Linda, you know, this kind of territory just didn't exist. But it is, as you say, you know, kids from a previous marriage, miles of motorway between couples, and social media. You've tapped into a real snapshot of life in 2016, I think. Well,
the whole trilogy actually started when things were beginning to take off with social media, because Meeting Lydia is actually about internet relationships and how people's relationships, existing relationships, are often threatened by the contacts that their spouse made from way back. It could be an ex, it could be a new relationship.
Friends reunited syndrome, I think.
It was. That's what Meeting Lydia was based on, the email relationship developing because of friends reunited.
Which I think, I mean, it is the modern way, and it's going to be the normal way once this settles down, you know, 5-10 years from now. But what does that actually say about the relationships that we've been in, that we clearly have been reaching out for something? We've not been 100% fulfilled. We've left a little void for people to walk back into our lives, or to walk in for the first time through this, inverted commas, new technology. I think it's absolutely fascinating.
Well, I think midlife is a very difficult time for relationships because it's just, I suppose, logical. You're not going to remain in that dizzy phase forever. And in fact, research shows it's only about 23, 24 months that people are madly in love. I mean, that's an average, so it's going to be less for some, and some people manage to sustain it for years. But once things settle down, and particularly in midlife, when perhaps the trials of life, growing up children and...
This is me, yep.
Well, I was just going to say day-to-day living. People want some excitement, and the easy way now to get that is a spark on the net. And unfortunately, there's a lot of documented evidence that these midlife relationships may cause an awful lot of damage and actually lead to nothing. Because, I mean, if it's an ex that you get in touch with, it could be that it's great for a while, but you fell out once, and then you may find that the same old problems emerge again. Yeah. And so you could end up losing your family over something that doesn't actually last very long. Of course, it works for some people. I don't want to knock it, but all of my books are really exploring the trials of midlife and the threats that come along. And I think if people read them, they'll be forced to think about how they can prevent problems happening in their own relationships.
Fascinating, absolutely fascinating. And as I say, without saying too much, tapping into some stuff that for me personally is going on, and therefore, obviously, I'm not alone in this, others too. And very quickly, Linda, I have to ask you, and I'm guessing the answer already, how much of this is based on your personal experience?
Well, Meeting Lydia, the first book, was inspired by some happenings in my childhood when I was actually bullied in a boys' prep school. My parents sent me to a boys' prep school because they thought it would be less rough than the local primary. And there were girls, there's day girls, but very few of them. And I was the only girl in the class for about a year when I was 9. And all the boys were horrible to me because that's the worst age for boys to get on with girls, really. They don't think they're worth playing with and all that sort of thing. But there was one boy in the class that I remembered never being horrible to me. And he was the only one I would ever have wanted to get in touch with.
And you reconnected through social media.
I connected through social media. Now, I have to emphasise that the spark for Meeting Lydia came from this reconnection, but the adults are totally fictional. I ran with a sort of totally fictional plot once I'd got that idea.
Fascinating. Published by Matador, part of a trilogy, The Alone Alternative. Thank you very much, Linda MacDonald.
For more on ghostwriting, please check out TonyHorneBooks.com.
And now here's a very quick roundup of this month's Matador news. Firstly, Matador will, of course, be at the London Book Fair this year. You can come and find the guys at stand 2C70 with all of your self-publishing queries. The book fair is at London Olympia, April the 12th to the 14th. Now, ebook program manager Rachel Gregory had a guest post featured on the Independent Publishing magazine website in February. The article presents a fresh look at how the digital publishing sector is changing at the moment and explores ways that authors and publishers can make the most of these changes. Just head over to the independentpublishingmagazine.com and you can see Rachel's post. Now, one of Matador's ebooks, Paul Tompkins' best-selling The Girl on the Pier, has successfully been featured in a BookBub price drop promotion for the second time in 6 months. And as a result of this US-focused promotion, Paul has seen his sales roar. BookBub are a very selective company, so being featured by them is a real coup. And you can see plenty more about that if you go to troubador.co.uk and follow the links. And that's a roundup of what's been going on in the last month or so. There'll be more Matador news next time around.
Matador Masterclass.
And now on the Pencast, the Matador Masterclass. Ebook production controller Megan Lockwood-Jones is asking the questions. Ebook program manager Rachel Gregory is answering them.
Apart from cover design, What would you say are some of the most important things to consider before you start converting a manuscript to ebook format?
The first thing to consider is whether it will work best as a reflowable ebook or a fixed format ebook. Most text-only novels work best as reflowable because the majority of devices are compatible with that file type. If it has lots and lots of images in it, however, such as an illustrated children's book, it might be best suited to the fixed format. So that's really the first thing to consider before you even start preparing your manuscript for publication. An edit is also really, really crucial, particularly with the new procedures that a lot of retailers have brought in for quality assurance, because they can actually withdraw something from sale if they feel an ebook has lots and lots of errors in it. It's really important to have a look through yourself, but also get someone to have a look through it externally as well, whether that's someone you're paying or a friend, because it's so easy to overlook errors in your own work. In terms of images, do you own the rights to use them? If not, it's usually relatively easy to get the permissions you need, and there are lots of royalty-free image sites that you can source pictures from as well. Are they high enough resolution to go in your ebook? Generally, as a guide, 150 dpi is the best resolution for ebooks. And whereabouts in the manuscript are they positioned? And finally, don't use song lyrics unless you have written permission. That's really, really important.
Once the ebook's been converted and you're ready to upload it, what do you need to think about before making it available for sale?
Firstly, audience. So as with anything, different distributors have a different audience, different customers. So definitely do your research and look into who your target audience is actually buying ebooks through. You also need to consider your keywords and categories. So the smaller the subcategory, essentially, the less competition you have in the ebook charts for that category. The more relevant your search terms, the more likely people are to find your ebook. It's as simple as that. And finally, price is really, really important. So what's the optimal price point for your genre? Do you intend to discount your ebook anytime soon? Therefore, would you maybe want to put it on at a little bit of a higher price for now? And do you have a series or a back catalogue that you'd like to reduce with the release of your new ebook? They're all really important things to consider.
Briefly, what can you do to try to generate more sales initially?
Ebook marketing should generally be based online because that's where your customer base is, so that's where they'll be looking to find out about their new ebooks. It can be great to send review copies to reviewers and bloggers. NetGalley is a really good review site where you can upload your files and people can download a free protected copy in exchange for a review. Look into what merchandising opportunities are available with the retailers that you're using as well. And finally, I suppose price drops and topical promotions are really useful. So you can reduce the price of your ebook for a week or two and combine it with a relevant news story or a topical event that's going on at that time, and then tweet about it, mention it on social media, and that can really help to generate sales initially.
And how about when your ebook's been available for a while?
All of my previous points about marketing still apply. But you can also relaunch your ebook, make some changes, refresh the cover after a year or so, make some amendments to the text. It's one of the great things about producing an ebook. It's really, really easy to change things. And then that way you can relaunch it. You can announce to people on social media that you've refreshed it. This is a new version. So that can work really, really well.
FAQs.
Each time on the Pencast, we run through some FAQs, frequently asked questions. So here we go today with 5 more. What's the difference between reflowable and fixed format ebooks? Most ebooks are reflowable, which means that the content isn't anchored in place. It reflows onto the next screen if a reader zooms in or increases the font size. The fixed format option is best for complex ebooks with elements that won't translate well if they reflow. Common examples are picture books, graphic novels, and business books or teaching tools with lots of tables that can't be split between screens. This conversion type allows text and images to be anchored in place. Number 2. What should I consider when designing an ebook cover or liaising with a designer? The main thing to think about is whether or not your idea will work as a thumbnail image. A lot of sites, this is one of the first things that potential customers will see. So all of the key information needs to be really obvious. As with any book cover, the design should be appropriate for the genre with well-placed, suitable typography. Number 3, should I apply digital rights management protection to my ebook, DRM? This is quite a widely debated issue in the media. Many authors feel it limits readers. It comes down to a personal preference. A lot of retailers will allow you to opt out of DRM. Matador applies it by default because their authors tend to be in favour of it. And as a company, Matador's main concern is protecting authors from piracy, which is a very real threat. Number 4 on the FAQs. Can I make changes to a file that's already available for sale? All sites should allow you to upload a new file once you've made some amendments. It's one of the great things about ebook publishing. Be warned that previous purchasers are unlikely to be able to download an updated version automatically, though on Amazon, for example, the publisher has to manually request this option. And finally, number 5, how do I choose effective search terms? Search terms are crucial to getting your ebook noticed. Usually, you'll have 7 to play with. Use them wisely. They should depict the themes, subject, and plot. It's best if they're repeated in the description as well. Amazon only allows you to put your ebook in certain subcategories if you mention specific search terms. So it's worth doing your research. And there'll be 5 more frequently asked questions next time on the Pencast.
Now on the Pencast, it's time for Meet the Author.
And let's welcome another author on to this month's Pencast. We're off to Italy and a Matador published author, Clare Pedrick. Hi, Clare.
Hello, Tony.
Author of Chickens Eat Pasta, Escape to Umbria. And straight away, it's one of those books when you look at the cover, you warm to it. So tell us about the book. What's the story, Clare?
Well, this is a book about my adventure, which we're going to Umbria. At the time, I really knew nothing about Umbria. I hardly even knew where it was. And I, as a young woman at the time, and for various reasons, very fed up with my life as it was. I was working as a journalist, living in Brighton. And I just, out of a whim really, and a whole load of coincidences, which are explained in the book, I got on a plane and I went out and bought an old ruin in Umbria, in a little tiny medieval village, which was all sort of falling to bits. And the house that I bought was, it had no roof, no electricity, nothing. It really was falling to bits.
That's one hell of a whim.
Story.
That is one hell of a whim.
Yeah.
And you've been there ever since, and you fell in love.
I have. I did. Yeah, I fell in love with the house mainly.
Yeah.
But then that subsequently led, which is not what I was expecting at all, but it subsequently led to a love affair with, a human being, a man. And I don't want to spoil the story, but so the book is also about the love story and all the trials and tribulations, intercultural relationships, and all the rest of it. So it is. It's a love story with a book, and a love story with this man.
Well, we should say in one of I've found the whole writing world to be full of perhaps quirks is the word, coincidence another, and so I get Clare on the line here, and it turns out that we both studied French and Italian many moons ago. What are the chances of that? And I found living in Italy actually very frustrating, but I lived in Rome and then I moved to Padua, and that was a bit calmer, but Rome, troppo chaos.
Yeah, well, I lived there for a long time as well. While I was sort of doing up the house, I had to basically get some work. So I was working as a journalist, and I went and worked for the Associated Press, and then I ended up being the Washington Post correspondent. So I had to live in Rome, and I came to love it. I absolutely came to adore it, but it was madness.
Yeah.
It's slightly better now. But yeah, you need an awful lot of patience. And in those days, just to get a phone line put in would take weeks, and you had to bribe people. And
I always used to sum up Roman life that you would London businessman gets on a plane at 9 o'clock, lands at 12 Italian time, finds everything shut till 3 o'clock because of the siesta, and has wasted a complete day. achieving nothing. And that to me was how I viewed Roman life. But that was a long time ago, I think.
But then if you see the Italian businessmen, they'll be dressed much more smartly, and they'll be licking an ice cream, which is a sight that I just couldn't. The first time I saw it, I couldn't believe it. They're in suits with their briefcases and licking and a cornetto or something. It just made me laugh.
This book, I think, straight away, as I said from the cover, but also from the content that you've outlined, is one that you can warm to. I don't want to categorise it without having read it, but there's been a certain genre of that began perhaps with A Year in Provence, that kind of book, and people like to read stories like yours, I think, of upping sticks, having the courage to do so, finding themselves in the middle of nowhere with a wreck to do up and seeing where life takes them. So whilst I write, I don't read a lot, but I think that this is the kind of book that I would probably enjoy. And you've had 27 reviews on Amazon so far. What kind of feedback have you had?
Well, I'm happy to say that I've had very good feedback. I mean, it's one of the funny quirks that when you're writing a book, you don't actually think that you're going to be sort of putting your head above the parapet and getting people writing reviews about it. It never occurred to me. And of course you do. I mean, they do, and you have to accept what you get. Of course you do. But so it was a little bit of a surprise. But I'm glad to say that I've been treated very gently, and people genuinely seem to have enjoyed the book. I think that some people enjoyed it like a sort of holiday read, in a way of also people, in the winter, putting their feet up in front of the fire and imagining that they're in, warmer climes. And it's a real adventure about circumstances that, it was not easy. It really was not easy. And if I'd thought about it too much at the time, I definitely wouldn't have done it. So it is a bit of escapism, really.
So the book is Chickens Eat Pasta, autobiographical, which always leads to the question from me, what do you do next? Because you really, unless you're someone like Wayne Rooney, who I think's had about 5, you really legitimately can only have one sort of autobiography, possibly followed by an update. So are you going to carry on writing, or is this a one-off? Or are you... Yeah,
no, people are asking me actually for the sequel.
Yeah.
So I'm slightly concerned about that because this one took forever. So I might, but I would actually very much like to go into novel writing. I am a writer, I'm a journalist, of course, that's a different type of writing altogether. But writing is what I do, and it's extremely enjoyable. And I think that a novel would probably be the next thing that I'm going to start working on, but I don't have any immediate plans. I have to earn a living as well. That's the tricky bit.
This is already becoming a theme, that you have to have the job and then you have to make the time to do the new work, as we'll call it.
Exactly. Yeah.
Well, it's wonderful.
Enjoyable.
Wonderful to talk to you. Chickens Eat Pasta. Escape to Umbria. This is Clare Pedrick. Thank you very much for coming on the show this month, Clare.
Thank you very much indeed for having me, Tony.
And that is it for this month's Pencast. We'll be back around the 1st of the next month. Thank you so much for listening. Spread the word and make sure you check out the website. We'll see you next time.
The Matador Pencast is written and produced by Sarah Taylor and Horny Media. If you'd like to feature next time, please follow the link on the Matador website. And don't forget to check out more on your host at tonyhornebooks.com. Thanks for listening, and we'll see you next time on the 1st of every month as the Matador Pencast continues.